For some reason, the fact that atheists are smarter than religious people is controversial. The fact that it's a fact isn't controversial, of course. That's been borne out by study after study, and regardless of wealth, education, gender, and religiosity of the parents, atheists as a group always outscore theists when it comes to the ability to think. Yes, of course, the smartest Christian is way smarter than the dumbest atheist, but on the average, the non-believer is significantly more intelligent than the believer, and as well established as this fact is, it's absurdly polemical. It's just not polite to talk about. Why, it's downright rude to point out that people who believe logically incoherent things based on the authority of a guy in a silly hat are dumber than people who don't. Even if you use big words, they're going to know you're picking on them just from the tone of your voice. Take, for example, the response to the new meta-analysis from psychologists Myron Zuckerman and Jordan Soberman. You probably saw it on a Facebook post under the heading, "Fucking Duh." Their study, which was recently published in Personality and Social Psychology Review, looked at decades worth of data from 60-plus well-designed studies and found that, to nobody's surprise, atheists are still definitely smarter than theists. And sure, this study has its detractors because religious people are really good at getting angry at reality when it fails to conform to their desires. So sure, a bunch of Christians are yelling, "We're not as stupid as they say we are," and a bunch of scientists are confirming that they're wrong. Nothing new to see here. In fact, the only really interesting part of the study was the bit at the end where they tried to answer the why question. Now, this is always kind of tricky for psychologists dealing with the issue. What we have here is a stupid question that demands an intelligent response. Why are atheists smarter than theists? Well, if you define intelligence as the ability to come to correct conclusions when given sufficient information, you're asking why intelligent people are smarter than non-intelligent people. But sociologists aren't allowed to end their papers with, "We conclude that religion is stupid," so instead they offered up 3 possibilities to explain the data, and all of them are commendable attempts at not rubbing it in, but none of them stands up to intellectual scrutiny. The first is that intelligent people are simply less likely to have conformist personalities and are therefore less susceptible to religious indoctrination. Now, I'm sure that this is true and it is a contributing factor, but at best this only partially explains the data. Even when you separate out the people that are raised without religion, the atheists in the remaining group are still, on the average, smarter. This fact, which is in their data, completely dismisses possibility number 1. Possibility number 2 is a little bit more reasonable. It posits that intelligent people are less likely to accept any belief that isn't subject to empirical testing or logical reasoning, and as reasonable as this is to say, it still has no explanatory powers, because all they're saying is that intelligent people are better at thinking, and yes, that's true, but it doesn't address the parlor pachyderm. Which brings us to possibility number 3, which is the G-shucks bullshit explanation that relies on 4 dozen assumptions that aren't supported by the data. They say that perhaps intelligent people are simply less likely to need the things that religion provides. Of course, try as they might, they failed to demonstrate any benefit of religion, so this lacks any explanatory powers as well. It's worth noting that some of the nonsense in this third possibility is directly contradicted by their own findings, as one of the explanations they try to use is that atheists are generally wealthier and less in need of supplemental feelings of control. But since the data shows that the trend holds even when you account for wealth, this clearly can't be the case. I don't want to be too hard on the researchers here. They did the best they could to draw attention to a fact that needs to be given more credence in public discourse. But if we're being fair, the question, does an invisible person listen to you when you wish for shit, should be on the IQ test. And if you answer yes, you shouldn't be allowed to have an IQ. Now, we're not going to get that, but the premise of the question is pretty simple if you grant that there is actually a correct answer to the God question. Basically, what they're saying with this study is that people who got this major question right also tended to get other questions right. It's like a study that finds that people who know the capital of Belize are better at geography. So why are atheists smarter than religious people? Because getting answers correct is the definition of intelligence.